Okay, let's talk about Fantastic Four by John Byrne. First of all, the art is beautiful. I love this book. The art's beautiful. The writing's great. It's such a fun read. I have only read the first volume, but I'm definitely going to read the second volume. And then there's also like a thing omnibus that kind of spins out of this that I'm definitely going to read as well. I wasn't sure if I was going to pick that one up, but I did decide to pick it up, and I did read the first few issues, and I'm liking it already. So that might be one of the omnibuses I read next. John Byrne is just one of my favorite creators, writer or artist, whichever one he's doing. And this book did not disappoint. So let's take a look. Let's get the dust cover off. This has the classic look here under the dust cover. This is like the old school Marvel end pages too. Fantastic Four by John Byrne. It's so sci-fi. It's exactly what the Fantastic Four should be. It's like crazy sci-fi adventures, acts of heroism. It's creative. You get a bunch of different villains and stuff in here. Of course, Doctor Doom makes an appearance. How could he not in a Fantastic Four book? And then you have the creators here. John Byrne, Chris Claremont, Marv Wolfman are the main writers. And then John Byrne, Jack Kirby, and Ron Wilson. Now, the name John Byrne is the biggest one on both of these because he wrote and drew the majority of this, which is amazing. He's so talented. There are some different inkers in here. My favorite on this list would be Joe Sinnott, but Dave Hunt does a good job as well. It's actually interesting how big of a difference inkers can make in comics. I think they get overlooked a lot of times, but you'll see, I think there's a point in this book where I believe Joe Byrne is actually inking his own work, and there's kind of a shift in the way the art looks. I think it's a little cleaner when like Joe Sinnott or Dave Hunt is inking it. Now, not in a bad way. I mean, all the art in here, start to finish, is great. No complaints about the art at all, but it does shift a little bit, and it looks slightly different when you bring in a different inker about halfway through here. So it's a slightly different look, but I loved both looks, so it didn't detract at all for me. You actually have a table of contents in here. And then we start off with a Marvel team-up book. And this is actually, the artist is John Byrne and the inker is Dave Hunt. And the author of this is Chris Claremont. Interesting, actually, that he's writing... I don't know if I've ever read Spider-Man book by Chris Claremont. Looks like we have the Super Scroll making an appearance here. I'm going to be remembering a lot of this book as I go through because I read this a while ago, but I just wanted to pull this out and do a quick review on it because I loved this book, and I was looking at my shelves trying to decide what I was going to review next, and I just couldn't help it. I had to do this one. So I just have to kind of remember as I flip through here some of what's going on. But I know one of the first story arcs in here after we get past this Super Scroll stuff, which is pretty cool. We got Miss Captain Marvel here. All right. Okay, yeah. So we have the Fantastic Four after this point right here, returning from space basically after they're fighting this enemy like the Sphinx. So they go to Galactus, and they make a deal. They want Galactus to take out the Sphinx. And Galactus basically tells them, well, I need a herald. So they go, and you get the origin of Terrax here. Let's see if we can find this character. This is before he's transformed into the Herald of Galactus. And then yada, yada, yada. They bring him to Galactus. He becomes Terrax the Tamer. I thought it was Terrax the Destroyer for some reason. Anyway, he has the power to control Earth. He's basically a super powerful Earthbender. You got the Watcher in here, but and then you can see that they're aging rapidly, and they're trying to figure this out. Then you have the different players here. You have the Watcher, you have Terex, you have the Sphinx, and you basically end up in a showdown. And I won't go too much further into this because I don't want to spoil what the resolution is, but it's the Fantastic Four, so you know they're going to come out on top. Skip forward a little bit here. There are so many crazy stories in here. Really cool, interesting things that, like, it's not one of those books where like the first issue in the book ties into the last issue. Like it's all one big overarching story, like Immortal Hulk kind of was. And I just did a review on Immortal Hulk. This isn't that. Most of these stories can stand alone on their own. That said, there is some character development and some plot building that takes place throughout the whole book, but it's more of like just different sci-fi adventures that are happening to the Fantastic Four. Oh yeah, you have this being that basically is like omnipotent. I forget how he gets created, but this is interesting. And actually, I see a lot in here. I've seen a lot of stories in here where I feel like other authors and books or whatever have pulled ideas from the concepts in this book. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Maybe John Byrne got, inspiration from other things, but this was a while ago. So another important thing that happens in this book is that we get a deeper look into Franklin Richards and his powers. That's the son of Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Girl, obviously. And that gets built on a lot later in comics because he is insanely powerful. It's to the point where it's a danger to him. And Reed Richards and Sue Storm realize that, and they try to take measures to make it so that his powers are controlled. So then we have this story where they go to the Arctic, and there's this like alien race that's been trapped on Earth, and they've been in cryogenic sleep, and they're trying to reverse the poles of the Earth and stuff like that to be able to leave. And look at these aliens. I mean, it's literally craziness. It's nothing like you normally see. They look like they have like afros or something. It's kind of crazy, little wacky. What else we have in here? Let's skip forward a little bit. Okay, here's where we start getting the art that's it's inked a little differently than it was in the beginning. But I mean, as you can see, the artwork is still beautiful, so it doesn't really bother me at all. Oh, Ego. We have Ego in here. Oh yeah, this actually reminds me of like what happened in Guardians of the Galaxy, where he's like bringing this thing into the heart of Ego, or the brain of Ego, or whatever. Oh yeah, I mean, they get shrunk down. There's like an issue that starts off with where it's like there's something off and none of them have their powers, and then it turns out they're in a tiny city created by Dr. Doom. So that's a little bit of an indication of the kind of stories you get in here. Some of them are better, some of them are a little silly, but like I said, this book is a classic. This is like what I love about the Fantastic Four, is what's in this book. So we got Shield coming in here. Oh yeah, we have the Inhumans. There's a story arc where they're dealing with the Inhumans. Black Bolt, Medusa. And the Watcher's there. He always makes an appearance in Fantastic Four stuff. Great. Look at this artwork by John Byrne of the Inhumans and the Fantastic Four. This is like a perfect example of why I love this book. Oh, that's right. This, I think, is the origin of how the Inhumans ended up on the moon. So you can read this and figure out, the story that kind of led to that. Oh, and that's right. Quicksilver is having a child who's now going to be part Inhuman, part mutant, and there are implications there, and things that Quicksilver is worried about. All right, we got Black Panther making an appearance. You get so many good characters in here. Franklin Richards basically turning his toy into an actual rocket because he can just warp reality and do anything. We've got more Galactus and Terrax here. Oh, right. The whole city of New York gets lifted off the earth, disconnected, and the Fantastic Four has to figure out how to fix all this with the help of the Avengers. Okay, so this is the story where Franklin Richards really shows what he can do and how dangerous his powers are to the people around him and to himself. I don't want to spoil anything, but this character is important and is extremely powerful, and you'll get to see who that character is if you read this book, which you should. Buy this book. You should read it. It's awesome. You got Dr. Doom. Oh yeah, and you have the this gladiator character here, so powerful, almost Superman-esque character. Comes down to Earth, starts wreaking havoc. Here's a really good example of why John Byrne's such an amazing artist. Look at this. This is like straight out of an anime. How he punches the thing, and he hits them through so many cars. They needed 2 panels to show the amount of cars that he was going through and the impact of that punch. And wow, would it suck to be driving one of these cars? Like, you'd be dead, I think. I think you're supposed to think that there's a person on each side or whatever, that somehow the thing didn't crush them when he went through their car. I don't know, but this is awesome. And this is also where it's kind of revealed that the Gladiator's powers are like psionic in nature, because he's picking up this whole building from the corner. And that's something that I was reading Irredeemable after I read this, and I was like, I don't want to give any spoilers away for Irredeemable. I was like, wow, that same concept, literally the exact same concept, is in this book. Like, I wonder if Mark Waid took any inspiration from this. But it doesn't make sense that this character could pick up a building from the corner, because, right, it would just collapse. You can't pick up a building from one corner of the building, but his abilities are psionic in nature. So he can kind of do almost anything he puts his mind to in terms of at least feats of strength. And that actually ultimately ends up being his downfall, with how they end up defeating him and realizing that there is a weakness that he has. Oh, this is cool. There's the X-Men here, or at least Colossus is here. Colossus and some of the Avengers. The Fantastic Car, or whatever these are called, I always thought they were so funny because they're just like so not aerodynamic, and they look so not practical. Like, why would he be sitting on this super wide seat? You know, like it's like a couch inside of this thing, and how do you even control it? I love that it's the classic way that this thing should look, but I feel like it needed a little update in terms of how their like flying car or whatever looked. But yeah, these fight scenes in this comic or in this book are super cool. You can really feel the weight of the character's blows. That he does action so well. I think he can draw characters in like almost any pose, and so here they're kind of using what they find out about him to beat him, but I won't give away what that is. Okay, and then we have the negative zone, kind of another staple of the Fantastic Four, the negative zone. My thought when I read this story was like, why would they take this risk? Right? Like, so many bad things have happened with the negative zone. Why does Reed Richards keep building freaking portals to it? But he does, and they go through and they go into the negative zone, and they have all kinds of adventures in there. But when they go through the portal, something comes out into New York and wreaks absolute havoc there, and that is Annihilus, another character who ends up being a big character later on when you have Annihilation and Annihilation Conquest. This isn't like the first appearance of Annihilus or anything like that, I don't believe, but it's crazy how that character evolved from what he was in this book to a universal level threat in the Annihilus and Annihilation omnibuses or storylines. Because in here, he's a little bit more wacky and just like a villain causing trouble in New York and stuff. And it's not like he has like a whole armada that he's taking out the whole freaking Kree and Nova Corps and stuff like that. Like he ends up doing it in Annihilation. So I think it was a really cool idea for those runs to take Annihilus and make him like a badass crazy villain. But this is a little bit of like, you know, early Annihilus stuff and what he was like back in these times. And yeah, and basically when they're in the negative zone, you got She-Hulk here. And when they're in the negative zone, you get more of this sci-fi stuff going from planet to planet. There's different alien civilizations they encounter and kind of hijinks that they get into. And then they end up having to come back to our regular universe and stop Annihilus. I don't care if this is a spoiler. Obviously they do. And you can read more about how that happens. So you have Monica Rambeau is here as what is her character name? Photon? Or she's just Captain Marvel at this point. But she can like change her body into different types of like energy. So she's using that to try to get past this barrier that Annihilus creates. And I don't want to spoil that. There's a lot of stuff I don't want to spoil in here, and I keep talking about different stories and then not talking about their ending because some of these stories are pretty quick, and I just don't want to give away the ending of any of them because I think you should get this book and read it. I love Galactus. He's one of my favorite characters in all of Marvel, hero or villain. Part of it is just because he looks so cool and the way he's drawn. There's so much cool Galactus art out there, and I think the character design for him was so awesome, which is why it really sucked when there was that one Fantastic Four movie with Galactus, and they just made him a giant cloud, you know. So when we see Galactus in the MCU proper, he should look something like this, or else I'm going to be real disappointed, and I think a lot of fans would be. But anyway, yeah. So awesome Galactus stuff again. And then it ends with the Fantastic Four kind of realizing this was a good story. This is kind of like a scary thing happening in this town, and they're go out to save their friend. It ends up with the Fantastic Four still being the Fantastic Four, but realizing they need to make a change in their lifestyle. And they can't live in the Baxter Building anymore. They want to give their, they want to give Franklin a proper childhood. So they decide they need to move. They'll still work out of the Baxter Building, but they need to move out to the country and change their names and identities so that they can try to give him somewhat of a normal life because of his latent powers. All right, that's as far as I'll go into that. I don't want to spoil anything, but I really enjoyed this. It can be a little bit of a heavy read, at least in terms as far as comics go, because it's very wordy. And a lot of comics around this time were like, there are things that you don't have to overly describe that they do in here. So like, let me put it this way. Reading one modern comic, you would finish a lot earlier than reading one of these, even if they were the same amount of pages. It just takes a little longer to read, but that's fine. I really enjoyed this, and if you're looking for comics from around this time that are great, this is one of the best runs to come out of its era, I think. And there's two omnibuses, so I haven't read the second one yet, but I'm really looking forward to reading it. And I cannot recommend this enough. Everything that I don't know if saying everything is too general, but almost everything that John Byrne touched is something that I want to have in my collection, and I think is really great. So, thanks for listening to me, and thanks for watching.